Okay, so yoga as the return embrace of the divine. I'm going to try to move through the slides because this is a very active group, and I'm sure there'll be some discussion, comments, and questions that we can entertain here. So let's see here. Yoga as the return embrace of the divine. So we already spoke in a couple of sessions about the love call of the divine. Even in last night's satsang, I tried to show that I think we all have that call in our own ways. I think if we look back at our lives, as the preparation for the satsang last night caused me to do, I found that there are little traces of this call. And I bet that's true for all of you. So I encourage you to look at your own special signs throughout your lives and see how the call manifests in different ways. Now for Arjuna, it manifested in his philosophical teachings. And that's why we have the Bhagavad Gita. You can see that Krishna doesn't pick up a flute on the battlefield. You don't bring your musical instruments to a battlefield. But he brought his call nonetheless. So we're going to fill in some of the blanks. We spoke about the start of this great Leela. These 5 chapters are present in the book that I've just produced. The love call is sent out, and the beauty of the flute, the sound of the flute was so enticing that all the maidens in the village dropped everything and came running out. And we're going to talk about the running out part, which we did not cover. And we're going to talk about a lesson that's given in the Rasa Panchadhyayi. So we started at the very beginning, and then we jumped to the end where the rasa dance took place. And this is, I claimed, this is a dance that takes place in the heart. So we're going to look a little bit more at how we can return that embrace of the divine as the divine has been embracing us for eternity. Now remember, in yoga philosophy, the soul has never been created. It's not a creatio ex nihilo, as in Western traditions. The soul is understood to come into existence at the time of conception and then goes on eternally, and you go either upstairs or downstairs. I use those terms because I don't want to say heaven or hell. Well, I just said it, so that's fine. So now you know what I'm talking about. So the soul is eternal. We've been around a long time, in fact, a forever time. The self is understood as an emanation from the divine. We are portions, infinitesimal portions of the divine. And I used the term, I think, maybe a couple of sessions ago. We're individuals. We're little tiny infinitesimal individuals from the supreme whole. So therefore, we're naturally endowed with divine qualities, and we have a divine presence. The question is how to revive an awareness of that. And that's what this passage is all about. So we have here, of course, Krishna playing the flute, calling. Is this working? Yeah. There we go. Krishna's playing the flute, and one of the Vrajagopikas is running out to the forest. Now, this 5-chapter or 5-act sort of drama, divine drama, really has, I've determined, a kind of cycle of 9 phases of love. And this is in the book, by the way. So Act 1, you have an awakening. Act 2, anticipating. Act 3, Act 1 is still anticipating. It's just the second scene. No, it's actually the first scene. Oh, it's just, okay, I'm confusing all my numbers. I can't read my own chart. That's when it gets really bad. So act one, scene one, anticipation. Then the third factor, phase, is act one, scene three is meeting. So we've got awakening, anticipating, and meeting. Finally, we also then come to a conflict. And we're going to talk about this conflict today. What could be the conflict? Well, there's a lesson to be learned, and this is why this drama is so important for us as yoga practitioners. And then there's separation. There's distance that is experienced from oneself and the divine. And then there's loss, a sense of loss. So this goes really far in terms of the separation. But then there's a reunion and a rejoicing, and finally a returning home. They awakened from their homes, and ultimately they go back to their homes. So this is an eternal evening. So they return home. Why? So they can be awakened again. And this is going on forever. And a circle, of course, indicates no beginning and no end. So it just keeps going around and around. And this is the nature of eternity. So we sort of stopped at this verse. Upon hearing that sweet music, their passion for him swelling, the young women of Vraja, whose minds were captured by Krishna, unaware of one another, ran off toward the place where their beloved was waiting, with their earrings swinging wildly. Javalo lakundala, javalo lakundala. You can almost hear it in the Sanskrit. Okay, some left abruptly while milking the cows. Due to excitement, the milking had ceased. Some left the milk as it boiled over. Others departed, leaving cakes on the hearth. So they're being totally irresponsible, right? I mean, who does this, right? But we talked about this also as a kind of death narrative. So when we depart this mortal frame, it's not always a convenient time. You can't schedule it in. You know, I love scheduling everything in on my calendar. Well, you know, this housing that we're in would be illegal in the real estate business because there's no entry agreement and there's no departure. There's no rental arrangement. You get, what is it when you get kicked out? Evicted, yeah. We're in effect evicted. But for the yogi, it's not exactly an eviction. For the yogi, the yogi has outgrown this mortal coil and needs a bodily frame that can contain all the abundant affection that is in their hearts. So it's like a kid outgrowing their shoes. You just have to get new shoes. So death is a little different for the yoga practitioner. Because as I said yesterday, meditation is like practicing a death. When you meditate, you don't take your relatives with you. You don't contemplate your children, what problems they're having or challenges that they're going to have or whatever. You're not concerned about your parents or your friends and so on. It's between you and the divine reality. This is what meditation is. And it's a time exclusively for that relationship. So it's a practice death. I mean, not to sound morbid, I'm saying it in a positive way. It's a time to practice being alone with everything. Sort of a paradox, being alone with everything. So, this is the worst part. Some left their husbands who had not yet been served. This is outrageous. I'm sorry, I get sort of personally affected by sometimes what I read. Others, while eating, abandoned their meals. Some were massaging their bodies with oils or cleansing themselves. Others applying ointment to their eyes, their garments and ornaments in utter disarray. They hastened to be with Krishna. Now, this is also expressing the natural renunciation that comes with love. When one is totally in love, everything else fades. Everything else fades. Sometimes I even see this in one of my students. I could tell one of my students is really in love, you know. They're there, they're taking notes, but they're not fully there. I mean, Schweig's lectures are great and all that, but, you know, but my beloved, far more important to me than anything Schweig can say in class. So I can see them. Their expression's a little glazed, you know. George. Oh, George. George. Or Georgette. Georgette. I mean, they're chanting a mantra, chanting the mantra of their beloved. So in that phase, really, in a sense, one dies to the world and forgets everything else. But yet everything else can still be, you know, activated on some level. She's there in class, right? Or he's there in class. Their husbands, fathers, brothers, all relatives endeavored to detain them, since their hearts had been stolen by Govinda, Krishna. They who were entranced did not turn back. There she is. She's not turning back. She's off to the forest. In fact, she's in the forest. You can see all the beautiful foliage, full of flowers and so on. Now, this is a very key part. Some gopis, unable to leave, had gone inside their homes. With eyes closed, fully absorbed in love, they meditated upon Krishna. So, many of the gopis were able to run from their homes out to the forest. So, a lot of times, we as yoga practitioners really can move out into the world and activate the 5 yamas. And we can, and we're going to talk more about how we can take advantage of being in the world as a process of meditation. Okay, that I want to make sure you walk away with that today. But those who did not achieve that ability to leave their homes, they left their homes in a different way. They closed their eyes and went into meditation. That's how they left their homes. The intense burning of unbearable separation from their dearest beloved disrupted all inauspiciousness. Due to joy of embracing Achyuta, which means the infallible one, Krishna, attained through meditation, even their worldly happiness was lost. So someone who's in love doesn't care about happiness or unhappiness. They're just in love. Love surpasses either and both. So there she is. But she still has Krishna. She's still responding to the love call, but she's doing so by going within. So let's look at what exactly she's doing. So here are the 7 chakras. I hope you can see them. Can you see them all right? Yeah, you can see them. Okay. And she's even crossing her heart chakra with her hands. And she's embracing Krishna from within. So this is the micro dimension of love, the micro dimension of the heart, as we talked about, going deep within, leaving the meso dimension, which is the sort of ordinary, conditioned state of the heart, that still carries with it some purities and impurities and blockages and things that don't block, and so on, a mixture of things. But here, she's leaving all of that, and she's going within. And that's what the arrows are about in the concentric circles. Moving toward the heart chakra. Even the artist even painted a little heart there. Do you see that? a little heart pendant there. So she's going deep within, deep within. That's the challenge we have with meditation. There are treasures to be had by going deep and ever deeply within the heart. And in fact, if you go really deep within the heart, you find you will discover the macro dimension. So there's a kind of paradox here. By going so deep, you expand very widely. And that's what's happening here. This is the macro dimension. And when you really go deep and the macro dimension manifests, guess what happens? Did you see that on the upper right-hand corner here? Well, I took a lot of trouble to paste that here. Okay? So I hope you appreciate it. That's what happens. She, in effect, also went out to the forest. She wasn't detained. She found a way to go to the forest differently than the other gopis. We in this world have the opportunity to do what this gopi does. And that's how we return the embrace of the divine as she is doing here. So the practice of meditation is so important, but we're also going to talk about what it means to go out into the forest, maybe not the divine forest, but the forest of this world. Maybe we can call it, some forests are kind of jungles, a little dangerous. There are all kinds of, creatures out there that will attack, sting, so on, okay? It's a jungle out there. Not really here. This 1,000 acres, you're fine, you're safe. But you go out there, well, actually, anywhere in this world, there's always going to be some challenges, some animals coming at you. Actually, I had this experience. My wife and I went to Vrindavan in India, the holy place known as, Krishna's beloved village and so on. And we went on pilgrimage to different temples. And we were at the Radha Damodar temple. And the priest recognized me once there because I had stayed there 5 years ago in the temple, actually, on the second floor. The person who was running the whole place invited me. And at the time, we were very privileged to go up and to be very close to on the mandapa of the altar and so on and so forth. So he remembered me, and once he recognized me, he said, "Oh, here's a gift, a box of sweets that offered to the deities," and gave me a garland, which is important for you to know. So as we were walking out, as we were finished doing our circumambulation, a parikrama, we collected our shoes. And my wife went first. She collected her shoes. She went out, and I collected mine, and I went. And as soon as I stepped out of that temple, at exactly just one step outside the shoe room, a monkey this high, and I mean this high, came up to me and stared at me in my face. Well, came up this close, and I swear this was an eternal moment. His extremely luminescent green eyes were freakish, and I was locked in. Meanwhile, my wife has no idea this is going on. And the monkey then took a flower from my garland, plucked it from the garland, put it in his mouth, and they don't eat like we do. They go like this. And while he was doing this, some of the petals from the flower were kind of like coming out of his mouth. He was really rude. If you're going to eat my garland, do it politely. Anyway, and someone behind me said, "You better give him the rest of your garland." Good idea. And we're locked into each other's vision. So I very nicely take off the garland and give it to him. He takes it and he runs off. as if it belonged to him. So this is the jungle, even in holy places. Okay? Anyway, I will never forget this. It's just an amazing experience. So, all kinds of things can happen. But when you're in meditation, you're prepared for such things. I'm not sure I was prepared for that, but then again, I never expected that. In any case, this is our process, what this Vrajagopika is doing. And then we can reach out anywhere, even all the way up to the divine. The heart is powerful. It is so powerful. It's a way we can travel to really anywhere where there is the beloved object. In the description, the early description of the self and the immutability of the self, the indestructibility of the self, the eternality of the self, in the beginning, second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there's one description which sort of bewilders a lot of people. Sarvagataha. It is everywhere present. Well, it's not that the self is present everywhere, because that would be the divine self. But this self has the capacity to move anywhere. That's the idea. The self can move to the place of the beloved object. And Patanjali encourages us to find what is most beloved, supremely beloved, eternally beloved, and focus on that in meditation. Then we come out of our meditation and move into the world, and we can handle all of the monkeys that come to us. Although I was barely able to, honestly. It's quite a test. So once, these Vrajagopikas go to the forest, of course they join Krishna in this great circle dance. This is one of the great symbols, religious symbols of all time, have yet to be really more appreciated, and I hope the book will help that. But the idea is that we don't have to go to the forest to join the dance. We can join the dance right here. That's the idea. Join the dance right here. And how might we join the dance? Well, the reason I chanted the Mahamantra, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, is because that is a very unusual mantra, because it has a circuitous formation of words and repetition of words such that the words themselves are dancing. And I claim in the conclusion of the book that the Mahamantra is but the sonic replication of the dance itself, because it keeps going around and around and around, and it doesn't really have a beginning, it doesn't really have an end. So it's a dance. It's a mantra that dances. It's the only mantra of its kind. It's not beginning with the Omkar, which many mantras start with. And it's the only mantra that has names of the divine, feminine and masculine, that are repeated and are in the vocative case, that is to say, calling out. Calling out. Oh, divine feminine energy, please infuse me with the inspiration to, connect with the divine beloved. And then Krishna is the one who is attracting us, awakening us. And Rama is that aspect of the divine that enjoys being with us in the dance. So it is a wonderful way to meditate on the dance within. Okay, so the Leela gives us a lesson on pride. Now, there are different words in Sanskrit that convey or mean or relate the idea of pride, but we won't go into those technicalities. Suffice to say that there's this lesson on pride, and let's go and see how that's expressed. Okay, so toward the end of the first act or chapter, Thus, those who received honor from the beloved Lord, Krishna, the great soul, thought themselves the best among all women in the world. They then became filled with pride. Keshava, Krishna, could see how they had become intoxicated with their good fortune, bestowing upon them his grace in order to quell their pride. Suddenly, right before them, he disappeared. Right before them. The question is, what does that mean? Ostensibly, the Vrajagopikas seemed to be grateful, like, wow, we are so fortunate. We're the most fortunate women in the whole world. It sounds grateful. I mean, it's nice to be grateful. But they were comparing themselves to other women. We're in a society that does a lot of comparing and competing. You know, Professor Schweig, did I get an A? I got a B? Why? I want an A. Come on, you know, sometimes I get that sort of thing in the university. The Olympics. Did you get a bronze? Well, that's better than nothing. What about silver? Gold is best. We're in a society that we push each other, we compete. Sports, it has it all over the place. Who's winning? Who won the golf match? Who won the football game? Winning, 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 winning. You know, beating, 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 beating. You know, I mean, we have different words for this. We're in a society that just values competition. It's just everywhere, everywhere. Buy my product, it's better than the one that was done before. Right? Even in commercial, you know, we've done it better. I don't know, a long time ago, Avis used to say, we're competing, or we're second best, or something like that. I mean, you know, they just everywhere, there's competition. In yoga, there's no place for competition. There's no place for, hey, you know, your vrikshasana sucks. You really got to get it together. You really don't know how to do it as well as I do. Here, I'll show you. No, there's no place for that. Someone told me my shavasana was terrible. I mean, come on. Really? I mean, so the point is, what is pride? Pride is the consciousness folding back on itself. It's being self-centered. It's called in the Bhagavad Gita, ahankara. Making the I the center. I'm the center. In fact, right now, I'm the center. Okay, I want to act this out right now. I'm the center. You're all on my periphery. You know. I came up with a Sanskrit word that is the antidote for ahankara, which is the subtlest covering of the true self. You have the Atman, and then you have the ahankara, this subtle covering of egocentrism. And then you have the buddhi, which is less subtle, and then the faculty of discernment or intelligence. Then you have the mind, manas. Then you have the senses, 5 senses, the indriyani. And then you've got the body, the deha or sharira. So the ahankara is what separates us from the true self. And it causes us to be very identified with the body. I am a male, I'm a female, I'm neither, I'm a non-gendered person or whatever. All these, you know, ways of identifying ourselves with the body, this causes this kind of central focus on oneself. Now notice when I showed the gopi meditating, she was moving away from herself. She was going so deeply within that she left herself. She was going so far out that she left herself. So the antidote to ahankara is what I formulated in the Sanskrit as anyakara. Practice being centered on another. And that's the way you can move in the jungle. Now, I tried my best to be centered on the monkey who was in my social space. Even I don't talk to people this closely, right? Right here, this monkey. So I tried to figure out how to serve this monkey. Now, the person behind me helped me out. Thank goodness. Because I'm not sure what monkeys can do. They can bite. In fact, I had a colleague on a Fulbright scholarship in Vrindavan many years ago who got bitten by a monkey. Yeah, that's not pleasant. See, the jungle can be nasty, right? So he had to go to Delhi and get shots and all that sort of thing. It's dangerous, actually. So the jungle. Since we happen to all be in the jungle one way or another, practice centering yourself on others. We have loads of opportunities. If you have kids, that's a great opportunity, right? Friends, even acquaintances, even a person checking you out at the grocery store. To be centered on another, to be sensitive to another. And ultimately, this prepares us for paramanyakara, to be centered on the supreme other. So each of our relationships themselves can be practice meditations. And that sounds maybe selfish, but it isn't, because you're being centered on another. You're serving another. This is not an easy thing to do, unless you're a social worker or a therapist, right? As you are. And as you are, yeah, that's right. I mean, in a way, therapists have to do this. I mean, they have to put their stuff aside to attend their client or patient, right? I'm not asking everyone to get a degree in psychiatry, like my father did, and psychoanalysis. And he was a teaching analyst, so he didn't know how to keep the teaching. So he was teaching me, as you heard last night, what a neurotic is. It's a terrible thing to teach a 9-year-old. Pride. Pride here means being centered upon the self. Taking one's attention away from the dynamic relationship. Now, I don't know much about tennis, okay? But all I know is it's really cool when someone hits the ball, and then the other person hits it back, and the other person hits the ball, and the other person hits it back, and that's called, I believe, a volley or something like that. A what? A rally. Okay, good. I'm learning something. Good. Okay, a rally. Okay, but as soon as one of them says, I am so good, I'm really good, you know what will happen? They will drop the ball. See, because their attention is now taken away from the action. And as soon as that happens, just like Krishna, it'll disappear. Just like that. I experienced that once. I remember I used to play Renaissance lute way back in my previous life. And at age 18 or whatever it was, I was performing in front of a large audience at Johns Hopkins. And I had 5 pieces to get. I did not know there'd be 1,000 people out there. They didn't tell me. I thought this was a little performance. So I had 5 pieces to play on this 15-string instrument. And I was playing, I was nervous as anything. I was not used to being in front of people and performing, on a rather complex instrument. The first 4 pieces went so well, and during the 5th one, I'm thinking, this is going so well. Guess what happened? Now, one thing you learn in musical performance is you may make mistakes, but you do not interrupt the rhythm. So you keep going, even though you're playing who knows what else, but you keep going. So I was doing that, but you see, as soon as I became self-conscious, I was out of the zone. Is that a term, right? Okay. You see, I'm a little smarter than you think. Not much. Not very sports smart, but out of the zone. That's the whole point of this. Pride takes us out of the zone, of the what's called the rasa. And then there was another instance. I mean, this is only 173 verses. And in those short number of verses, the lesson of pride is spoken of and demonstrated twice. I mean, this is a message this text really wants to get across. And in doing so, again, we as readers and ones who contemplate this Leela can understand the importance of not leaving the volley, the rally, okay? I always like learning a new word. It's always nice. The rally. So this is what is, she believed herself to be best among all women, right? She got the gold, okay? There she, okay. Abandoning the other gopis, struck by passionate love, he adores me as his only beloved. Now, this is where a lot of religions make a mistake. We have access to divine reality, and all of you are going to hell. And I've been told that I'm going to hell by so many different traditions. I'm going to have a lot of work when I get there. I'm going to be visiting so many people from different traditions because I've been told that I'm going to so many hells. So it should be interesting, but I can meditate. If I'm in hell, I'll still meditate. It's all good. Just a different kind of jungle, really. So then, reaching a certain place in the forest, she became proud and said to Keshava, Krishna, I'm unable to walk any further. Please take me wherever you desire. So then, please climb on my shoulder. He said. Then Krishna suddenly disappeared, and the woman was devastated. So this is the lesson that's supposed to be learned here. O destroyer of suffering for residents of Vraja, O hero of all women, whose smile crushes the pride of your devotees, O friend, please accept us as your maidservants. Show us the beauty of your lotus-like face. So here, in this middle chapter of the 5 chapters, or middle act, the Vraja Gopikas are experiencing the loss. They were looking for Krishna everywhere when they lost him. So they were looking for Krishna everywhere. They were meditating on Krishna everywhere, but they still were feeling the loss, a certain level of emptiness. And so they prayed in these ways. It says in the Bhakti Sutra, to aid this discussion, because Ishvara, the divine core of all reality, dislikes the person filled with pride, who practices the ways of action, knowledge, and meditation. For the person who possesses humility in bhakti is so dearly loved. So even those who are practicing ways of action, practicing the ways of, karma yoga, jnana yoga, and even dhyana yoga, we can still be self-centered. So we have to be careful not to have the practice fold back on itself. So, even in the yoga studio, wow, look, they can do the headstand. Wow. I'm not going to even try the headstand and look like an idiot. No, if your practice of the headstand involves you're looking like an idiot, that's perfect for you. There's no comparing. It's the journey that each of us takes is incomparable to any other journey. It can be shared. We can share with one another what the journey has been like. Sharing is good. That's part of being centered upon another. What has your journey been? What have you experienced? That's being centered upon another. Sharing. And that's what bhakti is about. Humility in bhakti. That humility means sharing. The ability to share and to be centered upon another. And that's what's different about typical practices of action, knowledge, and meditation. It can be too self-centered. And the irony of meditation, one could be meditating but never really reaching for the object of meditation. And that's the difference between meditation for itself and meditation to actually connect. The Yoga Sutra says, if from the realm of the divine, there should be a calling to enter there. Then, when coming to, who else could they be talking about? A calling to enter there. Right? So this is right there in the Yoga Sutra. There should be a calling to enter there. Then, when coming together with divinity, there should be the absence of pride. Because it would be a contrary, undesirable impediment for achieving a greater closeness with the divine. Okay, is this making sense? This is the big lesson of the Leela. Vitality, patience, tenacity, purity, freedom from envy, absence of excessive pride. This is in the Bhagavad Gita. These become the attributes of those of divine birth. So there's the gopi who is perceiving the footprints. There are things about this Leela that are very entertaining, and you'll see this. I'm not going through all of it. But Krishna is very playful with the gopis when they come out. So, he's calling the gopis with the flute. He wants the Vrajagopikas to come to him. And then when they finally arrive, he says, hello, ladies, why have you come to the forest? Okay? He's very playful. It is in our nature to be very playful because in the divine, there's playfulness. So playful is good. In fact, our Gurudev here, he's very playful. He laughs a lot. He makes fun of certain things in a very pure way. It's playfulness. Krishna is very playful. He's very beautiful, he's very playful, and he's very joyful. These are the three primary attributes of divinity that we encounter. It's the nature of humanity and the nature of reality, too. So she's a forensic scientist. She sees the footprints of Krishna going along. And then she sees another set of footprints that are smaller footprints. And this must be another Vrajagopika. And then, at a certain point, Krishna's footprints deepen in the heel, and the other footprints disappear. She infers from that, Krishna must have picked her up. Oh my goodness. So it's very, very entertaining. Okay, and lastly, I'd like to focus on when the Vrajagopikas finally find Krishna joining them again in the fourth act. before the final fifth act where the rasa dance takes place. They all sit with Krishna. They're sitting with Krishna. Krishna is sitting with them. They're each expressing different feelings about Krishna returning after the pain of separation. And when they were experiencing separation in the third act, one of the gopikas expressed how they resented that the Creator invented eyelids which would blink and take their vision away from Krishna when he was present before them for a millisecond. Like, what kind of creator is this? He didn't have to invent eyelids. Like, that took 1 millisecond away from gazing at the divine. Why? They said. Why would you do that? Right? Again, a kind of amazing sort of observation they're making. He didn't have to create eyelids. It's terrible. It takes my vision away from the divine. But when they all come together, one of the Vrajagopikas actually closes her eyes when Krishna is right there before him. Why? Because, like the Vrajagopika who stayed at home, as we saw, she wanted to embrace Krishna within and keep him all to herself. So there are these different symbolic, messages you can get from this passage that are so valuable for the meditator, the meditating yogi. But in this fourth act, the Vrajagopikas ask about the nature of love. The gopis say, some love only those who love in return. Some, however, love those who may not return their love. Some do not love in either of these ways. Please explain this clearly to us. Krishna says, friends who love each other yet ultimately strive for their own self-interest do not find endearment nor fulfilled dharma. Indeed, such friends have no other purpose than self-interest. Okay, so this is, in a way, describing, what the pride is all about. To always be self-centered, even in relation to others, even while interacting with others. What does it mean to bracket one's own existence and separate it such that I can be totally centered upon another? It's apparently a very difficult thing to achieve. Those who love others who may not offer love in return are either parents or persons of compassion. Okay, now I don't know how many of you are parents, but there's a point where, having kids, you are confronted by your ability to love purely or your inability to love purely, or both. So there's nothing like having kids to really teach you a bunch of lessons about love. Don't get me wrong, I'm not recommending you to have kids if you don't have any. But then I'm not saying you shouldn't have had kids if you do have them. In fact, I'm not really giving advice about kids at all here, okay? I'm just trying to show that here, parental love is being recognized as some of the, potentially purest love that one can have in this world. But mentioned here are persons of compassion. And this would be the sage. This is explained in the commentaries. Persons of compassion are sages or, yogis who have developed the ability to connect with everyone. And this is fully explained in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6. The ability to have affection for all sentient beings and to have a relationship with them that is as the least hurtful as possible. And so one is conscientious about one's life habits, even diet, such that one is not participating directly or indirectly in the suffering of other living beings. This is so important. One of the things I learned very early when I was just a teen, just beginning to practice yoga at age 14, I came across this while reading in the bookstore that I used to go down to and go on pilgrimage to the bookstore every week. I learned that you cannot expect happiness in this world if you are participating in the suffering of others. You cannot. It's impossible. It's not because God has a ledger and is writing things down and says, okay, you deserve to be punished. It's just the cosmic way of things. Even my students know when I say what goes around and they say comes around. It's just intuitive. Just about everyone. You can't expect happiness. And as yoga practitioners, we can't expect that lofty state of yoga realization and achievement and attainment if we're busy, living a life that is an impediment or has many impediments to being sensitive to others and being centered upon others. That challenge. So this is really part of this lesson. And he says, compassion. They are persons of dharma who are without fault and are truly endearing. So this is really describing a kind of selfless affection for other living, other sentient beings. Some do not love even those who offer them love, let alone those who are not loving toward them. Such persons may be satisfied by the self and fulfilled in all desires, or they may be ungrateful, even hateful toward the venerable. So some people have terrible, terrible experiences in their attempts to love. So better to be just neutral about love. I don't care. Sometimes, I don't know popular songs very well, but I'll never love again. Okay, I'm sure that's in some song. Okay, I'll never love again. I'm trying to remember some Beatles lyrics, but it's just like this decades ago. I can't remember anything. But anyway, this kind of relationship to love, the relationship to the heart, is something that can really be a very painful kind of pursuit. And so they're describing this here. But then Krishna says, dear ladies, indeed for my sake alone, you have abandoned the world, the Vedas, and even your relatives out of love for me. So Krishna is acknowledging what kind of sacrifice, how they have left everything, which of course is what meditation is about, the temporary departure from our whole world to go deep into the self. So he's explaining this with this acknowledgement. It was out of love for you that I became invisible. How about that? He became invisible out of love for them. Though you never were removed from my sight. Therefore, you should not be discontented with me, O dearest ones. I am your beloved. If in meditation we can be aware that while we may not be able to see and have a vision of the divine or all of reality, it, though, is already embracing us. It's already embracing us. It's how we're even living. The question is, can we return the embrace? Be comforted by the fact that we're already being embraced, and we can learn about that in reading the Bhagavad Gita, the different manifestations of the divine as Brahman, the Vishwarupa, the Paramatman, or Antaryaman. These are already there, but to have that foreknowledge that we're already embraced, and the idea of returning the embrace is a very worthy desire in the practitioner of yoga. I am unable to reciprocate your faultless love for me, your own purity, and all that you have sacrificed for me, even over the lifetime of a great divinity, severing strong ties to your homes, so difficult to overcome. You have lovingly worshipped me. May your reward be your own purity. So a lesson here can be that love in its purest form is its own reward, not the results that come from it. And in the Bhagavad Gita, we have a whole lesson on palatyaga, renouncing the fruits of one's activities. Well, the reason we're able to renounce the fruits of one's activities is because it's in the loving that we are so satisfied, not so much on how the object of love received it or did not receive it. I remember once one of my kids, when he was young, was playing these new video games that come out. This is back in the 90s, 80s maybe. And he would have all the kids in the neighborhood come over to the house. They'd come in all smiley and happy, and then an hour later, they would leave kind of like, And then he would come out and he'd say, Dad, I'm beating everyone in the neighborhood. I said, really? He said, yeah, I'm smashing them. No one can beat me in this game. I said, let me ask you a question. Do you like playing better than winning, or do you like winning better than playing? He said, I like winning. I said, you know what? You'll be bored of this game in a week, and until you learn how to love playing, you just go through these games like this. And that's exactly what happened. A week later, he got bored. It's the playing. It's not the winning. It's the playing. Okay, to wind up here, you remember my two little birds? Remember okay, you remember my birds? Yep, Krishna and Arjuna. We talked about that. So where does it end up? Where does this go? What happens to the bird so absorbed in eating the bittersweet fruit of the pipala? That's where it ends up. That's where it ends up. See the branch? That's the heart. The whole heart. Thank you. So we've got a good 21 minutes to just, discuss all this crazy stuff that we're blessed to be exposed to. Any comments? What are we doing here?
Just getting a microphone for the audience.
Oh, okay. That's a really good idea, Jerry. I just whenever you come up here, I get paranoid. Just the experience last night left a deep samskara. Yeah. Okay, we got over here. Yeah.
Thank you, Graham, for the lectures. Could you share with us your own routine, how you practice on a daily basis?
Oh, gosh. It's a combination. Well, first of all, I have a job. But I am very blessed to have the job, because when I'm at home, I'm deeply diving into sacred texts. And when I go to work, I'm deeply diving into explaining sacred texts. So I'm a little spoiled. So my whole day is focusing only on sacred texts and contemplating them. What to speak of a japa, meditation, and my wife makes me do some yoga asanas. Okay, yeah, that's very dramatic, Jeremy. Thank you for that. Yeah, so now, what should one's practice be? Well, this is a process of moving through the different angas, more moderately, as Patanjali says, or more than moderately, and then very intensively. He singles out 3 different levels of application. So I would say that my asana practice or any kind of exercise practice is moderate, because I'm so much in my head and in my heart. This is where I sort of live. And I don't live in my body very much. But I do sit erect in front of my desk without leaning back on anything for hours. So I practice asana right there, even at my desk. Cross-legged at my computer, writing away with reading books and so on. So, and then of course we have a beautiful meditation room. And I love to chant there. And with my wife, or without, and then of course, there's the deep meditation that's a solo act. Combination of things. But basically, even at the university, they don't even know that I'm so absorbed. Most people, when they go to the university and teach the Bhagavad Gita, they teach it, they go home and they smoke cigarettes and they drink. That's fine. I mean, at a certain level, but that's not the whole life is focused on, in which I'm very grateful for.
Could you talk more about the meditation?
More about the meditation. The meditation is all about enacting the rasa dance within the heart. Okay, it's just what I've been showing here. It's all about that. Enacting that dance of divine love. And ideally to join the dance. And have that affect one outwardly. And to have it be contagious. We talked the other day about hurt people. This is a common sort of meme out there, right? Well, joyful people make others joyful. So it's really nice. And part of the reason why I find myself, popular at the university is because they just don't see very many happy professors. I mean, we academics are a boring bunch. We are a very boring, tedious, pathetic bunch, sitting in our armchairs. And my university doesn't understand me. I'm writing books like crazy right now, and I don't need to. But it's because it has nothing to do with academics. So part of my sadhana is swadhyaya, deep, deep study, which then ultimately produced these books. Because if you've ever written a book, it's extremely unpleasant. Dealing with publishers, editors, and so on. It's not a pleasant experience. But it's worth it. Because I'm trying to give to others. Yeah. So it's a combination of all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Is that helpful?
Yeah. I guess I was looking for more detail, if you could tell us, share what you do when you close your eyes. But if it's
that's more
fine.
private.
Okay.
And what one realizes, and that's the kind of thing that maybe one would share on a one-on-one basis, but not so publicly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But that's good to know. In other words, those things that we encounter in meditation. I mean, I remember starting to practice meditation way back when I was 15 years old. And how it's gone through all of these different phases. Some of them were scary, honestly. Some of them were scary. I actually thought I was losing myself. It was very scary. I had experiences in India where, one of the powerful yogis I attended back then and went around India with, I had to deal with how he read my mind. It felt invasive. I mean, I've gone through all kinds of phases of meditation. So it's a whole history. Now, I showed my external history last night at the satsanga. with the church and being bored as all get out in second grade and looking out the window and not doing any of my assignments. Ironically, I didn't do very well in school until I dropped out. Then I really did well in school. But all the way up to my dropping out, I really did not like school very much. But you have to also remember, the jungle out there, very troubled. You were growing up to go over to Vietnam and 50% chance you'd come back in a pine box. So you had to grow up fast. But it turned out I was too skinny to be drafted. I weighed, at 5'9", I weighed 108. And the gun is heavier than the body at that point. So they wouldn't have been able to draft me, but still it was terrifying. Many people I knew were leaving, moving to Canada, going to Mexico, going to Europe, escaping the draft. I was escaping the draft by going in. I was trying to do what that Vrajagopika was doing. But in this case, I was trying to escape the jungle, not go out to the jungle. Yeah. Remember last night? Was it Vietnam or Harinam? That's
the worst way to escape.
No, not the worst way to escape. That's right. Much better than drugs. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Another simple question.
Yeah.
So a lot of words were interchanged for Krishna
Yes.
that I noticed.
Epithets.
So I'm just wondering, were those all the words that are used for Krishna, or are there many more and I have to figure it out on my own? How does that, or do I have to come to one of your classes?
You have to come to one of my classes. Okay, if you have a copy of my Bhagavad Gita, there is a page that gives all of the epithet names that are used throughout the Gita, of which there are many, I think 40. And even the epithets for Arjuna, of which there are about 20 or so. Okay. So it's right in front, because I knew someone like you would be out there asking me that very question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, just to go back to Igor? Yeah. Igor's question. So Patanjali recommends japa meditation. So you have your japa beads and you meditate with those beads. So practice.
Mantras.
That's right. That's right. Mantra given by your guru, or you can just chant the Omkar, as he says. So, very important practice. Japa, spoken of by Patanjali. Good. Any other?
I do.
Oh, wait, this is the question zone right here. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. We're not going over there. We're staying right here.
Controls the mic.
Because
that's right.
They did yoga in other lives, so we are the one catching up. So
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
have
This side of the room, yeah.
we'll
right.
figure it out.
We haven't dropped out of high school yet.
Yeah, whenever I tell parents that I did, they get very nervous. They just, don't talk to my kids, okay?
I hope you're not encouraging people to drop out of high school.
Oh, no, I really don't. If it works for them, fine.
I have multiple questions, but I'm gonna go with I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly.
Ahankara.
Is that the ego? Could be equivalent to the ego?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, it depends on the context of the word, but it depends on how you define ego. Mm-hmm. Because so one translator, translates it as the false ego, but sometimes ego means false self. So you have to define your terms carefully.
Okay. And on humility, let's see. I guess is the person has to be humble, but there are pride in showing God through someone. Let's say your ability to study Sanskrit and languages, deep old text. That is a gift that God gave you. Is that something wrong to admire? Because I guess everyone has talents that they don't belong to us. They come from the divine. So my question is ego versus admiring the gift that God gave us.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I encourage all of you to admire me, okay? I am so humble, I would not even know that you were admiring me. Okay, let me start over, okay? That did not come out right, okay? But seriously, it is important to be grateful for the gifts that come. In fact, all of us here have experienced gifts, great gifts in our lives. You wouldn't be here if you hadn't. So it is wonderful to revel in the joy of receiving those gifts. The only thing you don't want to do is say, hey, what gifts have you got? I bet I have more than you, that kind of thing, right? It's obvious. But it's about our response to those gifts. It's about the gratefulness and the connection to the source of those gifts that we can achieve in meditation. The return embrace. We're being embraced already. The return embrace. Remember I gave the example of that nephew that you hug, right? That young kid that you hug, and he just stands there like a wet fish, right? Make sure we're not that wet fish. That we're actually returning the embrace. And that's meditation is an embrace. The whole point of meditation is to return that embrace. Otherwise, meditation, as you could see from the Bhakti Sutra, can be a form of just fulfilling, just ego. It can still be ego-centered. Yeah. We humans are capable of destroying anything good. Have you noticed? We're so good at that. The second part of the monkey story? Oh, really? Do I have to?
One short clarification. The object, when you mention the object, is that divine? Multiple times in your lecture, you refer as an object. Okay.
Yes, the divine, or the greatest thing that you can love.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thanks.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah, my wife is insisting that I tell the rest of the monkey story, which I really didn't want to. So afterwards, we went to lunch. We were invited over to an acharya, a great sort of saintly person resident in Vrindavan, and his family goes way back, hundreds and hundreds of years, to this famous temple. And I happened to meet him during my first year at Harvard. Krishna Kanta had never met him, so I brought her over and we had lunch. And I told Srivatsa Goswami what had happened with the monkey, and he started laughing. He said, I know why Krishna sent you that monkey. I said, you know why? He said, yes, I know why. He said, because you're becoming so successful as a scholar, the only way to humble the likes of you is to send the monkey. Okay, are you happy now? So I have friends that try very hard to humble me, and I generally don't appreciate it, honestly. Thank you. Even my wife tries to humble me right here in the presence of all of you. Okay? So.
I have a question.
Oh, there you are. Yeah.
I think in one of the lecture you said that the Gopika got the ego and Gopika got the pride and Krishna disappeared from.
That's right, just like that.
So is it the pride or is the ego?
Well, I think
or other question, like in something that line, that ego is caused by the pride. Due to pride makes you egoistic.
Yes.
So can you elaborate more on?
Yeah, I think, again, how we define these terms. Sometimes ego refers to the pure self, but sometimes it has the connotation of being egoistic or egotistical. So again, defining terms is very important, because the words can have different meanings, different senses, different contexts. So in the sense that I think you're meaning it, yes, that pride is that subtle level that, as I've defined it, pride in this context, in this teaching, is about consciousness folding on itself, a kind of self-consciousness, self-awareness, to the detriment of the awareness beyond yourself. That's pride.
So that when Krishna disappeared for Gopi was thinking what? She was proud of herself, she was big egoistic.
Yes. She was comparing herself to all other women in the world. We are the most fortunate women in the whole world. Krishna disappears. If they had said, we feel so grateful to be with Krishna, don't talk about other women. This is not a competition. It's not a gold medal situation. So the subtle comparing. Now, it's not that all comparing is going to be, a terrible thing, but we just need to make sure that we're not doing what I did when I was performing. Hey, I'm pretty hot stuff up here on the stage. It's pretty good, right? Then the zone. I went out of the rally. I decided I really don't like that term. Rally sound, is that something the stock market does? Yeah. It's the only time I've ever heard that term. There's a rally in the stock or something like that. Isn't that they use that term? Maybe? Yeah? Yeah, okay. See, no. But anyway, I'll keep the term. But I think I'm very appreciative, really. So,
okay.
Yes.
You mentioned reaching for the object in meditation. Can you clarify that?
Okay, so sometimes meditation, in the beginning, can be a simple calming of the self, focusing on the breath, doing some pranayama. It's good. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is good preparation for what ultimately meditation is about. Ultimately, meditation is embracing the object of meditation. Remember, we talked about the diamond? Remember? Turning the diamond, right? That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be as like diamonds that are being lit up, the facets of which are being lit up by a divine source, by reality. We're supposed to ideally have a relationship with the divine reality. So meditation can begin at very rudimentary levels, just being calm, collected, but that's why I always like to say, listen to some beautiful, serene bhajans, which can move the heart and get things going in the direction of that embrace. So that's what I always recommend. But yes, meditation ultimately and ideally has an object. And the object ideally will actually, through like we saw with Patanjali, a kind of massage the meditator as a form of grace. The words in that particular passage is grahitra grahana grahya. Now, you don't have to be a Sanskrit to hear that the phonetics are all similar. So it means the one who embraces or grasps, right? Grasps. The one who embraces, the embracing, and the one to be embraced. The most dramatic word in Sanskrit for the word grace carries the same root, a word that is derivative from the same root as these others. And you can hear it. Anugraha, that which follows the embracing. Anugraha. Patanjali cleverly avoids using that word by using a metaphor of being anointed. Being massaged by the object of meditation. So that's the definition of anugraha, of grace. That which follows the embracing is this being absorbed in the object. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah, that is a form of receiving, because I've
Yeah.
always heard like prayer, you're talking to God, but when you meditate, you're receiving from the divine.
Yes, ideally. At first, we may not feel that or experience that, but at least from the sacred texts, we can know that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This workshop has been transformational for me,
Oh,
and
wonderful.
just like an awakening that I needed. Yoga is so much more than I ever imagined. I started last summer, and I realized, it's the spiritual portion I had no idea until this workshop. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Well, thank you. We have a lot to look forward to. That's what these great sacred texts are telling us. So before you got here, you were asleep, and then you were awakened by these workshops?
I was asleep to the spiritual aspect.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm being a little facetious, but yeah. No, seriously, I'm delighted to hear that you are here. Very delighted to have you here. Yes, next, yeah.
I was born in 1960, and so have been part of the whole female empowerment movement
Yes.
throughout the last 65 years.
Yes, indeed.
And so I'm wondering, and it has had an impact on me, and like the parable of the 10 virgins in Christianity has always been a little rough. And so I'm wondering how masculine and feminine is infused into this teaching.
I would say that you do hear a lot of a male voice, but I think it goes beyond gender. What's being taught goes beyond gender. Now, one thing I did in my translation of the Bhagavad Gita, ostensibly it's between two masculine figures, right? There's Krishna and there's Arjuna. But one thing I did is I degendered the Gita, because in Sanskrit, everything is gendered. But in English, the only thing that's gendered are pronouns. So whenever a pronoun shows up, it's like suddenly, boom, oh my God, gender. But in Sanskrit, everything is gendered, so it neutralizes the whole effect of gender. So instead of saying
A specific gender in its delivery, in the way that the words are written, you said it's very gender focused.
Sanskrit is, yeah.
But so as the Bhagavad Gita is written, is it in a specific gender or?
Well, it depends on the words.
Oh, I see what you're
Yeah, it's a
saying. Like
highly
in Latin,
inflected
you
language.
have.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Everything is inflected.
Yeah.
So when you go into English, nothing is inflected except, nothing is inflected, but the only thing that indicates gender are not any of the words except for pronouns. So instead of saying, he who sees me everywhere and sees all things in me, to him I am never lost, and he is never lost to me. No he, him, and all of that. Because you don't feel that in Sanskrit. So I say, one who sees me everywhere and sees all things in me, to such a person I am never lost, nor is such a person ever lost to me. You feel the difference? It's much more
Universal.
Yeah. And that's the way it feels when you read the Sanskrit. Do you agree with me, Leela Shakti Mai? Okay, you better. Okay, good. Okay, good.
So you're saying that the Sanskrit does not have gender in general? Is it like inclusive, or it refer like in Krishna, he as a male?
Well, because it's all gendered, it doesn't stick out like it does in English. So when suddenly you come across, in fact, one translator, actually he's not it's called the translation for the Bhagavad Gita, but he's not a translator. He's a renditionist. He takes other translations and puts them together. And he puts the man who does this and the man who does that. Horrible. I mean, he's just bringing in exactly what we don't want. You know, just too much man, 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 man. So it's a horrible rendition, but a lot of people like it, by the way.
Maybe an example would like all rivers are female, but like maybe a mountain can be a male. So I think that's what you're saying.
There are some attributions that might express something of what a culture considers to be masculine and feminine. And you know that, but in Sanskrit, with such a deeply inflected language, you don't feel that the gender tension in there the way you do in English. At least that's my experience. Honestly, that's my experience. Thank you so much for attending, and I wish you all success and happiness on your yoga journey. Thank you so much. Hari Om.